I have 8 reasons why I choose to invest my entire monthly paycheck like a crazy person. Besides the unavoidable expenses like insurance and taxes, I save 95.7% of my income every month. This isn't advice at all, and I'm not suggesting anyone follow me. One huge external motivation is the fact that now is the cheapest time to invest. I started my investing journey in 2016, around the time I got into army. I remember I bought DBS at $15 per unit. At the time, it was around 3% dividend yield only. I thought it was not so good since there are other stocks doing over 5% like REITs. Fast forward to today, those units of DBS I bought at $15 are making me about 15% dividend yield now. So obviously anyone's gonna regret not investing in DBS last time. Now the price is almost $35 per share and it's still at a 5+% dividend yield. I'm not saying that if you buy DBS today, it'll give you 15% yield in a few years' time. It may or may not happen, but the lesson is clear. You'll get more returns just because of a longer time in the market, whether you buy DBS or any bank or the S&P 500. I started working in August 2021. The S&P 500 was 4.4k. Let's say I started working just 1 year earlier and the S&P 500 was 3.3k, and today the S&P 500 is almost at 5.2k. So that's another strong motivation for me, but I know what you're thinking. Why can't you set aside just a bit of money instead of investing everything? So that brings me on to my second motivation. I deliberately put myself in a state of debt, so I wouldn't spend on stuff that a person really in debt would spend on. One reason I do this is because I'm in debt to my future and goals. Actually, I need the money if I want a family in the future. The second reason is because I sold my Alibaba and Chinese stocks and realized a loss of about 23k. And since I save about 5.3k each month, I'm literally about 4 months behind schedule. So this gives me the extra push to clamp down on my spending and be focused on my goal of financial independence. That brings me nicely to my next point, which is motivation to fulfill goals. Anything you do, be it sports, music, career, or whatever you spend most of your days on, you do it because you want to achieve something at the end. For me, since financial independence is my goal, so investing gives me a better peace of mind and makes me more fulfilled than spending money unnecessarily. Whatever thing is truly your number one goal, then whatever you do that helps you reach your goal faster will make you feel more fulfilled. You'll be willing to sacrifice time, money, and energy to achieve it. For me, investing everything just for a couple of years to be financially free for the rest of my life is worth it. And why do I want to be financially free as fast as possible? That brings me on to my next point. Recently, I read an article about someone who retired at 31 years old. He retired early because, I quote, "life is hilariously short." I have a feeling that when we are young, we tend to view life as a long time more, so maybe we view time as less precious, so we put off thinking about retirement. And when we finally get to the typical retirement age, we realize we don't have many more healthy years left to live and choose to retire. That's just my guess. When I asked my friend if she had 1 year left to live, how many days would she want to work? I guess like most people, her answer was 0 days, even though she enjoys her work. But the purpose of this question is not to tell you to leave your job immediately, it's to find out what you truly want to do. Most people will be spending more time with their loved ones, creating new experiences, and be busy ticking off items on their bucket list. Since most of us don't start our lives financially free, how long would you spend amassing that capital to reach financial freedom? For me, that's as little as possible. We've been conditioned to chase big houses, expensive cars, and high-sess stuff so that we are always in debt to remain in the workforce as long as possible to make our companies richer and richer. Of course, I also want that. I mean nice stuff, not remaining in the workforce as long as possible. But if I need to sacrifice the majority of my life to afford the nice expensive stuff, maybe I'll do things differently and really ask myself how much is enough. If you're interested to know what my current goal is, you can watch my plan here. I also recognize that life is an experience and it needs to be lived. While that doesn't necessarily mean I need to be spending money, there are still things that do require money, like for example traveling. Of course I want to travel as much as anyone else, but not being financially free yet means travel can wait just a little bit longer. Plus I know a few people and even a colleague of mine who hasn't traveled further than Malaysia or Indonesia before. So I already consider myself pretty fortunate that I was able to travel for family trips, school exchange programs, and even army training exercises. Anyway, to me, I don't have the FOMO and there's no reason why I have to travel now. The country will be more or less the same after I reach financial freedom. So if you're someone who travels once every year, you're waiting 1 year for your next trip, I'm just waiting an extra maybe 2 years. So it's not much different, I just have to be a little bit more patient. But for now, there are many other things that I enjoy that are free or very cheap. So while saving so much in Singapore, I've never felt that I'm sacrificing while saving 95% of my income, well besides sacrificing traveling. I think I've experienced almost everything there is to experience in Singapore after 26 years of living here, so besides traveling, I really have no need to spend money since I'm pretty comfortable doing my hobbies for very cheap. I'm sure you have your own hobbies that are free or very cheap to do as well. Being frugal does not mean I buy absolutely nothing. In fact, I still buy almost whatever I want and sell the item after I use it, and sometimes I still can make a profit. I go into more detail about how I wait and find these secondhand items in this video here. Also, going through the justification process in my head before I make a purchase is also kind of exhausting, especially if the item is not a need. Anyway, the buying and selling on carousel method requires a lot of patience and risk. It's difficult, but it helps me save 95% of my income, so I don't mind doing it. Sometimes getting a good bargain makes me feel shook as well. Since I'm in my 20s and I have no dependents like a wife or kids, I can seize this opportunity to invest as much as I possibly can. When you have a partner and kids, now you gotta pay for a mortgage, school fees, and almost double your food budget. One of my colleagues is in this situation and he almost isn't saving anything at all. I do want a wife and kids eventually, but the longer I delay it means that the faster I can grow my investments and then use the returns from the investments to help support my family next time. That's why investing heavily now is so important, because I will need that money to start my family in the future. If you're also a fresh graduate, I don't suggest following the 50-30-20 rule where 50% is needs, 30% wants, 20% savings. For my colleague with kids, it's almost 100% needs and almost 0 wants and savings. So when you don't have any dependents yet, fully seize this opportunity to invest majority of your income instead. I think the last and scariest motivation is that any company can let go of their employees, and that's the whole premise of an emergency fund, so that you have 6 months of expenses for you to look for another job. If you assume your contract doesn't get renewed, are your investments enough for you to semi-retire or fully retire? It's coming to the end of my contract soon, and I'm now more than ever more desperate to invest everything I can to get my dividend income as high as possible. Of course, investing everything and not spending anything isn't something anyone besides me would do, so just set aside a percentage of your salary every month for investment and do the math if that's fast enough for you to achieve your financial goals. For me, I'm definitely able to retire comfortably if I remain single and spend like Ashish Kumar if my contract ends this year. Or do I really need another job to reach financial independence? Let me go back to the drawing board and I'll update you guys soon. Subscribe if you're interested.